Everybody just waiting for another commissioner or two to come in, so we make sure we have a quorum. Just a second. All right. On the presumption that Jerry's iPhone is Gene, we'll have enough to start, and I think we have at least one other commissioner coming later, so we can kind of let people trickle in. I don't think it'll be too extensive of a meeting, but you never know. Sometimes short agenda meetings sometimes go long, and sometimes long agendas go short. But in any case, welcome. It is April 2nd, 2025. This is the April general meeting of ANC 1C in Adams Morgan. We guess we can get started. Introduction of commissioners. I don't remember what we can start with. I don't know, 1C09. How's that sound? Going down.
Okay, I do think last week we went the other way, so that works well. Gosh, what am I saying? Oh, I'm Catherine Swanson Palmer. I'm the commissioner from 1C09. My district is Harris Teeter, Columbia Road, 16th, and Euclid, I guess is the best way to describe it. Anything else you all want me to say? I think that's it, right?
That's good for now. 1C07, Commissioner Evans. I think your mute is still on. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay. Gene Evans, 07, Calorama, 18th Street, Champlain, in Ontario.
Commissioner Laughlin.
Hi, Commissioner Linda Laughlin, 1C06, the eastern side of Adams Morgan on the eastern part of Lanier Heights.
Scott Olson, 1C05. My district is most of the other half of Lanier Heights leading down to the zoo.
Hi, I'm Peter Wood. I represent 1C03, so that's, I think, the easiest one to describe. 18th to 19th, Biltmore to Wyoming. And Commissioner Michelson Horowitz joined us. Just brief introductions.
Hi, I'm Daniel Michelson Horowitz, representing 1C01. That's the bottom of the hill between Florida and Wyoming, from approximately 18th on the east, although including a little triangle that we will talk about later tonight, and to Connecticut and Columbia on the west.
All right, thanks, everybody. So first, approving tonight's agenda, I'll move to add a late agenda item, which is the quarterly financial report for this quarter. We have to do that every 3 months in order to get money from the government. It's a bit of a tedious process sometimes, but that's neither here nor there at this point. It's a late agenda addition because of, I guess that is relevant, because it's tedious and often frustrating. The timeline of making sure that we get all of the bank statements in line with the meeting schedule, et cetera, sometimes makes it so it's a late addition. So it's not for negligence or not paying attention, but just because bureaucracy is sloppy sometimes. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Olson. All right. Any questions, comments on the late agenda item? Commissioner Olson, you're the treasurer. You want to add anything on that? No need if you don't want to.
Very standard for us to approve the report, and I'll walk through it when it comes time.
Perfect. All right. All those in favor of the late addition, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. I'll move to approve tonight's agenda officially. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor, any comments on the agenda is clear for everybody? All right. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Both motions pass 6-0. So we have an agenda for tonight. I will start with officers' reports. Chairperson report. I guess two things. One, we're trying to get together ideally some sort of in-person kind of get people from the neighborhood together to discuss things. I'm still working on finding a venue. I was hoping to have it done by tonight so we could mention it, but I haven't. But we can still potentially have that happen. I mean, at any date, but we're aiming for April 30th. That's just not official yet. But in any case, there's also a lot of other stuff happening. So hopefully we'll have multiple options. But something that's organized by us that would be unofficial and in person is yet to happen. But I'm hoping to have that at some point. I admit I've been very behind on a lot of stuff and I'm catching up, and that has been part of it, but also just haven't been able to find the right venue just because of conflicting dates with places. So hopefully more on that later. And then second, the 1CO8 vacancy, I believe someone pulled the petitions for that. So it's like, I think on the third, with the way that it works, if there's a vacant position, the DC's Board of Elections essentially has kind of an arbitrary time period where potential candidates can pull petitions and say they want to go get signatures, and then they have to have it done by a certain arbitrary date. And if no one does in that period, they kind of cycle that period again in X amount of weeks or something. So I think it's the second or third iteration of that since the start of this year, which that position 1CO8, it's like essentially what, southeast of the Harris Teeter, more or less, that has been vacant this whole year. So there's potentially one candidate. They have to, I think, turn in petition still. So we'll see. But potentially moving on that, we'll see. And in the event that there's more than one candidate that qualifies, a special election would take place. And either the ONC or us, or hopefully the Board of Elections, but I won't cross my fingers, would be the entity to organize that. But we'll see if that happens. And if so, we'll deal with it then. All right. Who wants to go next? Treasurer's report.
Yeah. Thanks, Commissioner Wood. Current balance in our bank account is $11,423.06. We have no checks or payments outstanding. The March 31st was the end of fiscal year 2025, quarter two. And so that's why I'm asking the ANC to approve the quarterly financial report, which we can talk more about when we get there. Nothing surprising in there. The two backlog financial items that I'm still working through, one is about a grant that the ANC gave last year that was deemed impermissible by OANC. We're following up on that. It seems there's some inconsistency in what we've been told by the office about permissibility of different grants. So we're trying to figure that one out and avoid that kind of problem going forward in the future. Beyond that grant and filing our taxes for this year, we don't have other backlog financial items. So I'm pretty excited that in the next month or two, we have a new system going forward. We've made payments using ACH transfers, and that has worked out just fine. So I think we're going to be in good financial footing, and we can expect to get our full allotments from OANC going forward. That's all for me.
Love it. Thank you. Can't wait to have money that we were told we can't spend. Commissioner Swanson Palmer, Secretary's report.
Thank you. All committees held their regularly scheduled meetings this month. In April, we'll have the ABC meeting on April 9th, PCT meeting on April 16th, and the PSE meeting on April 23rd, all at 7 p.m. We put up paper flyers again this month to advertise our April meeting for about a week and a half. And I plan to continue this and hope to do a couple of flyers like we've discussed with the meeting schedule for several months. So hopefully you guys have seen those. A couple of them have fallen down, but I taped them back up. So that's it.
Appreciate the service on that. All right, individual commissioner updates, as well as if you're chairing a committee. Want to start with you again, Catherine? 1CO9 down? Okay.
Sure, happy to. We had our first 1CO9 community cleanup this weekend. It went super well. We collected about 15 bags of trash. The DPW and one large trash item, one bulk trash item. So big shout out to Anthony Robertson, our Moker, for helping us with that, and to all of the folks who came. Hoping to have another one next quarter. And the Reed Cook Association would like me to announce that they are also hosting a community cleanup on April 12th at 10:30 a.m. They're going to meet at Unity Park on the corner of Euclid and Champlain Streets, and I will be there. So please join me. I am continuing to work on drafting a letter of support for the installation of a litter can on Euclid. So more on that soon. And those are my updates.
Thanks. All right, next, Commissioner Evans, single member district. I think you're almost there. Yeah. Let's see if I can just there's another way to just override the microphone. Do not believe so. All right, we can come back to you in a second if you want to. Commissioner Laughlin, how we go? We get that mute figured out.
Okay, yeah, because I'm thinking of Teams where we can unmute. uh, sorry, I think like a lot of federal workers, there's just a lot on my mind right now. So I don't have any initial reports for 1CO6, but I want to piggyback on the comment about trash cans. So at the last PSE meeting, we've had some other requests in the community for public trash cans, but we're also hearing reports that sometimes these trash cans, when they're installed, they're then uninstalled because they're misused by the community, we're told by DPW. So what I actually wanted to, and I can circulate this more in email for us to discuss and then maybe invite, but I would like to invite a contact from DPW to, I think, to the full ANC commission, because I guess I'd like to get clarification about why trash cans get removed and what we should be aware of and what education we need to do to community members. It's typically they're being household waste is being put into them, and that's why they get removed. So I would say, like, before we like encourage community members to put in requests for to get trash cans installed, we should talk to DPW first to see why they're not going in the first place, and then why they get removed. Because this is just going to be a revolving door problem if there's something that we're not aware of that we could be helping community members on. So I can reach out to DPW and see if we can get someone to come to our next full ANC meeting. And I was also going to work with our MOCR on it as well. If the trash can happens to fall into the boundaries of the bid, certainly the bid helps out a lot with that. But if it's outside of the bid boundaries, we're sort of relying on DPW to really do a lot of that pickup. And then I also wanted to mention to commissioners, because I know we've been trying to think about another public date to do like a more public meeting. It sounds like the month of May has a lot of opportunities for us to do that. So I'm sure Kristen will mention this later, but there's gonna be Porch Fest on May 3rd, movie nights starting the 22nd, and a community yard sale on May 17th. So those would be opportunities for us all to do some tabling or some events with the community. And I think those are all of my updates. Oh, and at the last PSC, nothing voted on, but we did talk about grants and a document I'm going to send to you, Peter, to post on our website. But I just honestly, I think it's going to be very hard for us to ever fund anything with a grant.
I believe that's a unique sentiment across the city from other commissions.
Yeah. Like, I just don't know what to do anymore. It seems like nothing we do benefits Adams Morgan, which clearly these items do, but I just give up.
Well, we will try to turn that pessimism into something else at some point. But for now, it's understandable. Commissioner Evans, you want to go now? If your meet's working. If not, we'll figure it out. No pressure.
Can you hear me?
That's it. Perfect.
Yes. Okay. Jean Evans, 1CO7. I participated yesterday in a walkthrough for my SMMD, and most of the managers from all the departments were there. BID was there, Department of Health was there, someone from the mayor's office, Stephen Bryce from Safety Ambassador for this district was also there. And we did a walkthrough, walking down 18th Street over to Champlain onto Ontario, checking all the buildings and restaurants for rodents, and trying to figure out how we can really minimize a lot of these rat problems that we're having here in my district. So Gerald Brown, who is the manager, is going to put together a training class. He will give me the dates if anybody would like to participate and then be able to let their constituents know. I think it'll be very helpful. So I'll get back to you and the commissioners with that update on when we're going to have a training class on how to minimize and help to prevent rodents. So it will be here at Champlain Court at our lounge. So we can accommodate at least 25 to probably 30 people. So I'll keep you guys informed.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Thanks. The work that I've been doing for the past few weeks has been doing some reading about the history of planning for Adams Morgan and specifically around Lanier Heights. And I've been doing a few walks and sort of informal discussions with folks who I happen to know and be friends with who are interested in what Lanier Heights will look like, especially thinking forward to the 2050 comp plan. So things on my mind are things like, what will zoning look like in 2050? What will traffic flow look like in 2050? Can we get some parks or some way to get Lanier Heights to be sort of a little neighborhood unto itself? So if this is a topic that folks in the community are interested in, I'm like so happy to talk more, and I'd love to get a little posse of people circulating around the neighborhood and talking more and looking and pointing at things and developing a common picture for the neighborhood. So please do send me an email if you're interested in that. I'd love to engage with more folks on it. That's all for me.
Thanks. I think I'm up next. So yeah, so Alcoholic Beverage Control Committee and Public Safety will meet next week on, was that April 9th at 7 p.m. Basically, we're in the same, I think it's a multi-month process. Like in the general, we're at the bulk of when restaurant liquor license renewals come up, but I think they kind of linger on for a few months. But we're getting a lot now, which basically is just a process. We went over this in the last month's meeting, the committee meeting, where if you're a restaurant that has a license to sell alcohol that for on-premise consumption, there is a periodic cycle of the renewals coming up, and the notice gets sent to the ANCs. We don't have to do anything. They get renewal if we don't impede. But if we have any grounds to try to obstruct, even if it's, well, I guess you could do bad faith obstruction, but I'm opposed to that. But good faith obstruction to try to negotiate terms of like a settlement agreement or something like that, that is something that can happen in general, in my experience. The vast majority, we just have it on an agenda in case anyone from the community wants to come and bring up something to our attention that we haven't thought of before. But that hasn't happened very often, but it always could. So yeah, I say that to mean all that to say that the next agenda is very long, but it's because all these renewals that we don't necessarily have to do any even discussion on, but the potential is there. As well as I think we have a new license application for a potential medical marijuana or medical cannabis vendor. So that is on the agenda for next week as well. 1CO3. I mean, like a lot of things, I'm kind of waiting for, or like a lot of us, a lot of things hinge upon waiting on what's going to happen with DC's budget. So like that's something that affects all of us in different ways, of course. So it's kind of unfortunate that there's a bit of a waiting game going on to hope that we're not going to get ruined by the federal government again, but it could happen. We'll see. In the meantime, hoping that DPR, I think that wouldn't be affected by the next year's budget because it was last year's budget was approved for, I think, $2 million for erosion mitigation in Colorado Park. As far as I know, they're still working on planning that, and then when plans are available, they'll start presenting it to the community and having opportunity for community input. Haven't been made aware of that change in the process yet, or shifting in the stage, but when it's available, I'll definitely let people know and look forward to stewarding that in. And just another thing, I don't know the actual plan stage, but like I think it's the only like development project in 1CO3 that I've been commissioner during, which is 1836, 1840 Calorama, which they at some point got ANC 1C support for a historic preservation application. I think this is kind of an obscure thing to point out, but I'm pretty sure 1C03 in my records, which is a mapping software, is the only SMD that is completely covered in 2 non-overlapping historic districts. So it's very hard to construct stuff here. But this one's been going along and it has actually a pretty interesting history. I've gone into it in the past, but it looks really good. It looks like it's close to done. So there's a lot of construction going on in the neighborhood, most of it in 1C07, and also some in 1C01. But there's at least one project that seems to be getting into the less noisy phases of the project. So that's pretty cool. I think that'll be good. There's a lot of opportunities to clean stuff in streets around the neighborhood. Some have happened, some will happen in the future. That's a lot of us are doing. Release isn't here, but the 26th of April, if you're looking to come out, a lot of us will be doing that. So I don't think we've officially declared a time and place yet, but we're close. So just reach out to any of us if you're interested on the 26th in participating. Probably start somewhere in the middle of the neighborhood, but in any case, just confirm with one of us. Okay, deep breath. Who's up next? Commissioner Michelson Horowitz, all yours.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to lead off with a personal announcement that in the coming few months, I'm going to be moving out of ANC 1C, moving in with my partner who lives 5 blocks away, but unfortunately not in my district. By law, I will be creating a vacancy. I'm very sad to be leaving this great team earlier than anticipated. If you know anyone who is in 1C01, feel free to encourage them to run when the vacancy is declared. Thank you everyone for having me as your representative. I look forward to staying engaged in the community from just a few blocks outside. But wanted to share that so it's not a surprise when it happens and folks can think about whether they're interested in this role. And I'm happy to talk to folks as well. I'm sure everyone else here is. In the PZT committee, our meeting on March 19th, we discussed 2 items that are on the full agenda today, as well as 1 item on the consent agenda, a renovation project. And we also opened the floor for comments on an NOI for a new crosswalk on Columbia Road, approximately 2022 Columbia, but didn't receive any comments there, so there's no resolution on this agenda. However, folks are encouraged to let me know if you have comments on that, because I can connect you with the folks at DDOT. We've already heard a number of folks who are concerned with the placement of that crosswalk, and your comments are being heard loud and clear, and I don't have any updates from DDOT, but I know that those comments are being taken under advisement before the comment period ends, I believe on April 7th. Don't quote me on the exact date, but it's coming up in the next week or so. And we will have our next meeting on April 16th. I don't have any agenda items right now for that meeting, so please come to me if you have any. We may hold it even if there are no formal agenda items, or we might pull it down. I'll certainly let the listserv know and the website at least a week out from the date of the committee meeting. In 1C01, folks may have been excited by the removal of the tower crane from outside of the Oyster Adams School. It was a spectacle for a day, took it into the evening, and scaffolding is down and the building looks amazing. The addition on the south end of the school is nearly complete. So really exciting stuff going on there. They continue to say they are on track for the opening in the fall. They will be working on the upcoming DC holiday, DC Emancipation Day. Gave them permission so that they could stay on track. And then yeah, that's the big thing in 1CO 1CO1. I'll also mention actually the raise report that folks may have heard about. We don't have other information, but the former alfresco restaurant at the corner of California and 18th is set for a demolition, and the developer apparently, though received an official briefing, and they will come before our committee at some point. Is planning on doing a mixed use mid-rise development. And I'm excited to learn more about that when we get details. And then we'll hear about a parcel on the other side of that corner on Florida and U Street in just a few minutes. So that's all for 1CO1. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Commissioner. And Commissioner Diamond, you're just in time to give us a quick introduction, any SMD updates, and welcome back.
Okay, hi everybody. I've been out of town for a week. It feels like a month, and I just got here. So, in 1CO4, no major news. I've just been connecting with residents on the upcoming cleanup that we're gonna have as an ANC, checking in with people about garbage can and recycling removal. And we had a good discussion at the PZT meeting about the Biltmore Street Garden, but nothing else going on. So I'm Maria Lee Steinman, 1CO4, which is basically Biltmore Street, at Calvert Street, and some of 19th and 20th Street. That's it.
Thank you. Hope your transition back to regular life.
I know.
All right, so that's all the commissioner announcements, public announcements. If you're a member of the public and would like to make any comments, please raise your hand. Do ask that you keep them relatively brief. If you have comments on a specific agenda item, it's usually best to wait until the item comes up. But if you want to make the comments now, like if you can't wait around till later or something, feel free to do so. And we'll get to you in the order the hands are up, which currently is 0. But I'll wait a second because I know that at least a person or two probably wants to speak. Maybe not. All right, so next.
It looks like folks aren't able to raise their hands, maybe.
That's what I'm wondering.
It said in the thing, don't see the raise hand option in the Q&A.
I just raised my hand, but maybe they're not seeing it.
On the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems I'll take that as an indication that Kristen wants to speak, so we'll go to her
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, put a comment in just leave a Q&A if you want to speak. We'll try to figure that out.
Yeah.
I haven't had this happen before, but we can adjust on the fly. Not a big deal. All right, I saw something going on. There we go. All right, so it looks like we'll go to our moker first. Anthony Robertson, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
And
Okay, yeah, first of all, how's everyone doing? Happy Wednesday. But on our end, we cannot see the hand option. So I would like to first start off with just thanking everybody for having me here today. I enjoyed myself this weekend. Also, yesterday for the walk, the cleanup was amazing. We had 2 cleanups in the ward. We had 1CO9. Thank you, Commissioner Palmer. We also had 1CO1. We had a cleanup up there at the park. Thank you. And the walk was amazing yesterday. We actually addressed a few things. There's a bus stop at Columbia and Otero that should not be there. So that bus no longer stops there. I didn't know that either until the walk. So yeah. So that bus no longer stops there. So right there, I see everybody looking. I found this out yesterday. So that bus stop shouldn't be there because the bus doesn't stop there anymore. And so we'll try to address that so it won't become a hangout spot. We actually, if the bus is not stopping, there's no need for that to be there. We addressed a few issues in the alley as well with the DOH. Mr. Brown, he was there, and we actually sent a crew out there as well to address some of the dumping that was going in the back. Now, and we all, well, it was a few other things we got to, and I'll be doing a follow-up as we get those things checked off the action list. So as we do that, I'll be just following up that we knocked out the way. April 19th, the mayor is hosting at the 8th annual spring cleanup. Did everybody get the flyer I sent? Oh, thank you. All right, so it will be we'll be starting at 11th and on 11th Street. So we would encourage everybody to come out. We want to have a big showing for Ward 1. And we're gonna be spreading out, going out throughout the ward to clean up. So it's not gonna just be in just in one area. It's for the ward. But we're gonna meet there. That's where we will start. That'll be the starting point. We will have supplies. We're trying to figure out what else we can get, like maybe some music or something to attract more people out. So if we can pass the word for that. As well, if there's anything else that Mokers can help with, I'll be more than happy to help with anything that you have that comes up in your SMD. Please feel free to reach out and we can get on top of that. And if there is any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Great, thanks so much. It sounds like you've been busy. Questions, commissioners? All right. I think we'll be good. And we know how to get in touch with you when stuff does.
Wait, just a comment. Anthony, thank you so much for the bus stop situation, because somebody in our last meeting mentioned another bus stop sort of on the other end, closer to Connecticut. I don't know which side of the street it was on, but I will go out and take a look tomorrow and get in touch with you, because one of the constituents said that she saw people waiting at a bus stop and they didn't know it was no longer a bus stop. So that's not just an issue at Ontario Road. I don't have it on the top of my head, but I will follow up with you later, because that has been a problem along that the reconfigured bus route.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner. And anyone else, if you have a bus stop that is not a bus stop, please flag it to me immediately and we can get that addressed ASAP. That's you just don't want one, you don't want people just standing there for nothing,
right?
Like wasting their time. And then secondly, you don't want it to become just a hangout. So please do that. And I did forget something, if I may, Commissioners. Is it okay?
Go ahead.
One of the things that we did that did happen yesterday that was amazing for the walk is that we had DDOT out, Mr. Christian. So he actually took a group from 1CO3. He took a group up there. Okay, we was in 1CO7. So he took a group and walked them over there because they had some things they wanted to show them for our signage issues. And we're looking to address those signage issues. Now we followed up today, had a follow-up. So that was a pretty good move. So he left the group, but he addressed a lot of things that was going on the Connecticut Avenue, on the Columbia Road side, and just all over in that area right there. So that's it. I promise I'm done. If you have any more questions, let me know.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I do have one thing. And I got time to spend time with Commissioner Wood this weekend too. I forgot. All right, I'm right.
Appreciate it all, and we'll get in touch with you as more stuff comes up. I believe next was Kristen Barton from the Adams Morgan Partnership and Business Improvement District. No, it looks like we'll go with Nicole. I take that back. From Councilmember Nadeau's office.
Hey, folks. So just a few quick updates from the council. April is Earth Month. We're encouraging Ward 1 neighbors and organizations to host cleanups on the 26th. That is the same day the Anacostia Watershed Society is doing their cleanups to protect the Anacostia. So if you can come out and help clean up our neighborhoods, we would really appreciate it. Our next Brianna on Your Block, which is the opportunity for anyone in the community to come out and speak with the council member one-on-one about anything that's on your mind, a constituent services issue, a policy matter. That's going to be on April 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Los Hermanos at 1428 Park Road Northwest. And Senator Ankit Jain will join us as well. So if you want to come out and speak with him, I encourage folks to come out. We've talked a little bit about the budget tonight. Many of you have probably heard what's going on with the federal budget, how it's impacting us. We're waiting on the House for the DC budget fix, and until then, can't move forward with our FY26 budget that starts on October 1, 2025. So the mayor's budget will be later than expected. Today was the day it was supposed to drop, and we're just waiting at this point. So we really hope that the House will pass the Senate fix next week, and then we'll have the final budget from the mayor by mid-April, and budget oversight hearings can start the week of April 21st. We'll keep folks updated as that progresses. That's the goal and the hope right now, but things could change. So keep an eye on the council's website and our newsletter and our social media for updates as we learn more. And once those budget hearings kick off, we really encourage residents to participate in hearings. You can testify live for most hearings. You can do Zoom or in person, but if you can't attend, you can also submit written testimony. We need to hear about your experiences and your priorities for the various agencies, so that we know where the community stands on what we should prioritize. So encourage folks to come out. I'll stop there, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Commissioner Laughlin.
Are there any updates on the bottle bill? Like, is there any progress on it?
No, so we are, just out in the community talking a lot about it, trying to build a base of support. Would encourage folks to talk to your friends and neighbors as well. And, we're hoping it can get a hearing soon. But we'll keep folks updated when a hearing is scheduled so folks can come out and testify.
Thank you.
Anything else, commissioners? Thank you so much, Nicole. Glad to see you.
Thanks.
Looks like we got a couple other hands up. I think next is Kristen from the Business Improvement District. Francis Morgan. Welcome, Kristen. How are you doing?
Hey, everybody. All right. It always takes a second to join as a panelist. Nice to see everyone. Yeah, the walkthrough yesterday that Anthony Robertson and Commander Pulliam and Captain Modal organized was really great. So it was great to see you again, Commissioner Evans. Yeah, we had a really good representation from lots of different DC government agencies, and looked at a bunch of public space issues that needed to be addressed, and of course, rat concerns, and some loitering issues that have popped up recently as well in front of McDonald's, and in Unity Park and in front of Safeway and CVS too. Issues mostly where people are selling drugs, doing drugs, passing out, that kind of stuff that creates an unpleasant environment for people who are, trying to get into those stores and businesses. So, anyhow, it was a very productive walkthrough. So hopefully we can do those more often. I think Anthony and Captain Modal and others really want to do those more often. So that's great. So a few things coming up on our list. So Taste of Pride, Adams Morgan version is this weekend. So please come out and support all of the businesses that are participating. We have, last I checked, 7 or 8 restaurants participating. There will be more by the weekend. They just need to sign up ahead of time. But there is a small fee of $250 to participate. You can donate more if you'd like. The money raised all goes to LGBTQ nonprofits in the area, and as well as supporting World Pride in a couple months. The Art Walk kicks off this weekend also. So we have 21 businesses partnering with artists from DC Art Center. There's an opening reception tomorrow night with the artists and the businesses. And then the whole thing kicks off this weekend. So you can sign up to do a tour with DC Art Center. They have timed times on both Saturdays and Sundays when they're doing those tours, and they're asking for a small $5 donation, mostly just so like people show up. People tend to sign up for things that are free and then not show up. So you know, they're asking for a small $5 donation just to make sure you're really going to show up. You know, because those sell out, and they want to make sure that, you know, people who want to be there can, you know, can take advantage of that. So but the art walk is great. And it's a super fun event that we started in 2021, I think. So not the first year of the pandemic, but the second year. Porch Fest, as you all know, is Saturday, May 3rd. Really looking forward to it. We already have 21 porches, I think, in our 3 main stages. So Gangsta Grass is going to be the headliner, which is a super fun hip hop and bluegrass band. So they had, if anyone watched Justified on FX, they had the theme song was a Gangsta Grass song. So check them out if you haven't heard any of their stuff yet. I'm kind of low-key obsessed. So they're a lot of fun. And movie nights is going to come back to Marie Reed Field. We're only going to be able to do 4 this season because the field is going to be offline for renovations, very much needed renovations that are going to start in mid-June. So we're going to try to sneak in 4 movie nights on Thursdays in middle of May through early June. I think the last one is like June 12th, maybe. And the theme this year is DEI AF. So I'll let you all figure out what that might mean. But it's a really fun lineup of films that I think everyone will really enjoy. And then a Bike to Work Day, another popular regional event. We're hosting our Unity Park pit stop again. That'll be Thursday, May 15th. That's from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning. If you sign up on the Washington Council of Governments website, you get a free t-shirt. We'll have free coffee and breakfast goodies. There'll also be a raffle for some bike related stuff. The new Upshift workshop that's in the old City Bikes space, they're going to be there doing some bike repair clinics. WABA's going to be there. So it'll be a really fun morning. And if anybody's interested in helping out, you know, as a volunteer, we can always use a couple extra hands that morning to help out. So that gets us through middle of May. We'll have more programming to talk about after that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll take the risk of making the joke, but I hope that you're not dependent on federal funding for your DEIAF, right?
No, we're not dependent on that.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. Definitely a busy spring coming up.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
All right. Any questions, comments, commissioners? Looks like we're good. Thanks again, Kristen.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Take care.
And it looks like last person up, Stephanie. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, this is my first time coming to one of these meetings. I emailed Linda last week and bragged about coming for the first time. So I just wanted to raise 2 things really quickly that are just some concerns. One is the raid on HD Cook, not raid, but the ICE showing up and trying to take one of their staff. I'm just really curious if there's anything we can be doing or should be doing at this level. I'm involved in a couple of the surrounding elementary schools, not that one specifically, but have been supporting in terms of preventing like kind of ICE watch situation. It's just really, really troubling to see this kind of action, and also the risk of us losing our sanctuary city status. And that's something that's really concerning to me and a bunch of my friends, and it kind of feels like we're caving into Trump's demands. And hate that with every fiber of my being. So I would just like that to be noted. And then the other thing I wanted to raise was something else that I emailed Linda about. I don't know what the procedure is for this, but I wanted to flag that 4D recently put up a resolution. So essentially in 2020, Karen Hilton Brown was murdered was killed during an unauthorized police chase. In 2022, Officer Terrence Sutton was found guilty of second-degree murder. And Sutton, as well as a second officer, Andrew Zabowski, were found guilty of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice due to their roles in Hilton Brown's death. They were terminated from MPD as a result, and Trump reinstated them as of January 21st. So I guess the big issues that I wanted to raise are, great to see that 4D put out a resolution. We would like to see one as well. This really kind of just shows a lack of accountability. It's setting a precedent that officers can get away with murdering one of our own community members and also covering it up, just the fact that they're reinstated. And then also, again, with letting Trump control the actions of DC, which is an independent city. So yeah, those are the things I wanted to raise, and I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If anyone else wants to go first, chime in. I have a couple thoughts. Okay, so on the second point, I haven't seen that particular resolution, but we can definitely look at it and see if it's something that we want to put on an agenda. Speaking for myself, it seems important. Also, if I'm not mistaken, it could be mistaken. I would think that it was that the president pardoned those two officers and that it was MPD who reinstated them. That would be an important distinction if we're to figure out who to be mad at, which I think is the police chief. But in any case, that's something that we could look at in the future. On the first point, again, speaking for myself, I think that the main ways, and I've been trying to learn more about what the best, as commissioner as well as just a person in the city, best approaches for dealing with immigration stresses, which is understating it, might be. From what I can tell, some of it's not really like government started, that doesn't necessarily come from government entities, but like having people that can trust one another and have group chats to be able to say, hey, this is happening at this place, stuff like that is important. That can come from any, people that are willing to organize it. I have spoken with a few other commissioners, both on this commission and elsewhere, that represent schools that plausibly would be at elevated risk in terms of attempted raids by ICE because they have a lot of Spanish speaking students. We're thinking about ways to address that, if anything, as commissioners. Maybe, I mean, the one thing that seems to be the case, that seemed to have been helpful in this case, is that the staff, and this is coming from the principal, I sent them an email and they said, thank you, we don't need help, but it was really good that our staff was trained to deal with ICE. So looking at opportunities to try to get more training, just information so people are prepared. That's one kind of constant throughout the country I've heard, which is on one hand, people saying they're grateful for the training. On the other hand, other people saying that they're frustrated by the training, which I'd say is a good sign because they're just trying to deport people for the sake of feeling in control, in my personal opinion. So in any case, glad that that didn't escalate in the ways that it could have, but we can prepare for more, both as a commission, but also just, as I said, as neighbors. So hopefully we'll come more to come on that, but we'll see. I believe that concludes public comments. All right, so moving on, I'll make this clarification once. I might have made in the past. It's a weird one, but I'll not do it in the future. At one point, I think it was a chairperson event with OANC, we discussed if you approve agenda and then get to the consent agenda, you still have to vote on the consent agenda, even though the agenda was approved. So in theory, the consent agenda, it's a weird thing, but the head of ONC said, no, you need to do it, even though it doesn't really make sense. So we'll do it, but consent agenda tonight is a few items. A couple of them came from other ANCs. I think they're trying to get a lot of ANCs to send letters, or a resolution and a letter, as well as a thing that came out of committee, as well as our minutes. So without other discussion, I'll move to approve tonight's consent agenda. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Swanson Palmer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 7-0. All right, consent agenda is done. So we have a few items on our regular agenda. And the first came with support from the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee. Proposed amendments to Reed Cook overlay pertaining to 1781 Florida Avenue. Commissioner Horowitz, you want to introduce this?
Sure. That's in my SMD, and I believe that Jeffrey is on the meeting. If you can raise your hand, you'll be elevated to a panelist to answer questions. And as soon as you're on, I'll introduce. This is J.A. Schoenberger. There you are. Great. Okay. So I'll just introduce the issue. in the eastern part of Adams Morgan is the Reed Cook overlay. For zoning purposes, there are additional restrictions on the kinds of businesses that can operate in the Reed Cook overlay. And I'm just going to share very quickly the contours of Reed Cook overlay on the DC Office of Zoning map. It's right here. Mr. Schoenberger owns the property that is at the very bottom tip of the Reed Cook overlay right here, bordered by Florida Avenue at the corner of U Street. What was the CVS on the ground floor and also contains the Mint Gym on the second floor, which is accessed from California Street. Mr. Schoenberger came to the PZT committee to ask for our support in requesting some exemptions for his particular parcel written into the zoning code to allow him to bring a business to the neighborhood that benefits the neighborhood. There are some types of businesses that he is thinking of, but that there's a demonstrated need in the neighborhood for. I'm going to share his text of the resolution or the proposed amendments, so folks can see what he's talking about changing. These are some carve outs for his lot from the Reed Cook overlay restrictions. And coming out of the committee, we not only supported these changes, but we felt in general that this particular parcel, because of its proximity to the heavy traffic corridor of U Street, and its non-residential character in that particular corner, that we would alternatively support excluding this particular parcel from the Reed Cook overlay entirely. But that's not what the Office of Zoning felt like was the best approach to do this. But we did want to make it clear in our resolution of support that we think that alternative is also a good option. So Mr. Schoenberger, if you've got some additional comments you want to add, and then we'll open it up to questions from the commissioners.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Jeffrey Schoenberger. I've been involved in this property since probably like 2000, 2001. I can't even remember because when you get my age, it's hard to remember. And what was there before was a sort of notorious nightclub and a car repair place. And so we kind of transformed the project. First, I think it was Mint that sort of kicked it off. And then we thought we would tenant the lower level. And because what we sort of learned over the ownership time of what we think could be successful and being amended to the neighborhood is really prohibited by Reed Cook. And it pushes us to tenant the building in ways that doesn't really serve the neighborhood. It allows businesses that, lower cost option, and the businesses that have been there have not been particularly successful. So our approach this time with CVS, who has 7 years left on their lease, they're still paying us rent, but we would prefer to enliven the space rather than have it dark for 7 years. We think that's bad for us, bad for the neighborhood. It's going to cause probably vagrancy to sort of envelop around the perimeter of the building like it was before we took over. So we're trying to sort of the uses we have in mind would be sort of some sort of grocery type use would be our first preference. If I could wish list the world, it would be Trader Joe's, but that's probably a pipe dream. But we need to have these businesses always require the sale of beer and wine, and they do it to drive traffic. They do it for the sales. And so we're asking that there be some sort of, ability to have like as ancillary sales, beer and wine, off premises sale of beer and wine. We're also asking that that maybe something like a FedEx office, if they wanted to come there, so people have, like a business, venue, that also we believe is prohibited by Reed Cook. And then we also would like to, possibly put in a restaurant, and we had prepared food uses, but prepared food uses are very challenging in that location because it limits the amount of seating and the scale of having a proper operator. Someone who is a successful operator is not going to take that space. So we would really like to be able to provide, a good quality restaurant, within that property. And then the last thing we're asking for is that a veterinary clinic be able to take space in the building if we could find one. So that would be either a local vet or a bond vet or some other vet, because everybody has pets. And so we think adding more competition to the neighborhood to be able to provide those services, again, provides an amenity to the neighborhood. And I think that's all, unless, and if so anyone has any questions, be happy to answer them.
I have, I guess, questions and comments. Thanks for being here. With some of this, do you have any idea? I wouldn't expect you to necessarily be the person who has the answer to this, but do you have any idea what the rationale behind was, for example, like prohibiting a FedEx type establishment? Like most of those places literally are across the street from this corner, and the exception would be a veterinary clinic, which there are similar facilities within quarter mile. So it seems fascinating to me that this was all codified when literally like 50 feet across the street there is a paper store as well as a liquor store as well as a restaurant. So I'm just curious.
I think you're asking what I believe is to be the legislative history.
Just, I mean, something like prohibiting a FedEx type of place, like that seems like a peculiar thing. I'm just curious if you have any idea why that was put in place.
I really don't, except for maybe I'm gonna guess, and I'm just pulling this out of the air. I think Adams Morgan was a much different place back in the 70s when I think this code section came into place, and I think they're more concerned about we don't want a liquor store in every corner, and we now have the cannabis stores in every corner. We don't want liquor stores in every corner. We don't want to have these things because we want to. It was, I think, if I could be critical, I would say it was sort of a misguided way to maybe preserve the neighborhood from going further into decline, if I were to guess. But that's a good question. I really don't have a good answer for that.
If I can just briefly share this map again, and this is just the description that's given by the regulation that created, and so this is all I have to offer. To maintain heights and densities, small scale business development that will not adversely affect the residential community, and that new non-residential uses served by providing retail goods, personal services, other activities that contribute to the satisfaction of unmet social service and employment needs in Reed Cook and Adams Morgan. And so one reason that, yeah, I think those are services that Jeffrey described that would benefit the community, and that perhaps at one time were considered less desirable, but I think would be desirable by neighbors now. And then to the extent it talks about protecting adjacent nearby residences from traffic, parking, environmental, social, aesthetic impacts, that's where we felt like the development along U Street and Florida Avenue really has changed the character of this particular parcel, such that it's perhaps not as good a fit anymore for the Reed Cook overlay district. So that was our rationale for also alternatively suggesting that it just be exempted so that this property can benefit the neighbors by contributing to the walkable commercial corridor there.
Thanks for that. So my second question, which I guess I'll preface with a comment. So I mean, I'm in support of supporting this, but I mean, I guess the kind of like broader commentary here is that a lot of storefronts, I mean, I don't know if there's like hard data behind this, but it seems like Adams Morgan, as well as a few neighborhoods, is kind of getting a lot of rise in commercial vacancies. Does that seem accurate to you, Jeff? I know you're involved with a lot of this stuff. Is it like an avenue comment?
I think a lot of if I yeah I think in certain parts of DC that's happening. I think Shaw has probably gotten their vacancies are up. I think Adams Morgan. One problem with Adams Morgan retail, is that there's no one of the problems that affects it is that there's a lack of co-tenancy. And what I mean by that is that one guy might own one building next to another, someone else owns another building next to someone that owns that next another building. Not against pizza by the slice people. We've had people in the past that have come to us and, hey, we want to put a pizza by the slice place in here, and I've roundly refused to do that because I think it's a bad use. I think it creates trash around the neighborhood. I don't like it. So we're in a position where we need to curate our tenancy. So we and so I think if you can curate the right tenancy, then you have much better opportunity for success. And also, I think a lot of the retail, especially on 18th Street, it doesn't lend itself to being successful because a lot of it's step up, step down, and that's just and that's an anthem. And that's a terrible. No qualified retail town is really going to take that kind of space. Typically, they want slab on grade. They want nice storefront. They want they want good neighbor tenants and that kind of thing. So I think that's part of the reason. But we've struggled there, and I'm hoping that we can kind of formulate a recipe to be more successful.
I appreciate those thoughts. So I mean, I make that comment to say, in any case, there are commercial vacancies, and it's an issue. We've discussed it in relation to the moratorium zone in the past. I know most of the commissioners here weren't directly involved, but that is to say, it has been discussed, and it's an issue because, like, on one hand, some of the counter arguments against having the ANC support changes to how the commercial landscape of the neighborhood runs is sometimes in bad faith in my mind, but saying, oh, that'll just mean so that anything goes. If there was a proposal to like build a gas station or something, I'd probably be opposed to that. But we're talking about making it so that there's less restrictions in businesses that are already operating nearby to be able to be successful and prevent vacancies coming in. I'm kind of monologuing here, so I'll stop. But my question is, just for clarification, looking for a letter from the ANC to the Office of Zoning request would basically, because we don't have a resolution text written, so it'd just be something simple saying we support the attached text that was from the other document that you shared before.
That's a good question. I probably should have known that. I would say that's probably correct. I think if you just a letter stating that the ANC supports the proposed text amendments, and if you want to add alternatively a removal from Reed Cook zone altogether, that'd be great too.
Okay, yeah, just making sure, just because it's kind of a gray area if we don't have a specific text in front of it. Sometimes it's okay, but we had seen that text that just wasn't the text of a resolution, so just looking for clarification.
Should I send you the PowerPoint thing that I have? I mean,
I have it. I can share it.
Okay.
I have a question, and I have a question comment. So I'm all in favor of this, and my question is about parking. Sort of, what is the anticipated? So the businesses that we would like to see, are we anticipating that they will be attracting to neighbors, so they'll be walking there? And if not, how will parking be affected? And I'm thinking of a business like those ceramic places where you come and paint things. Would that be allowed under what we're requesting?
Yeah, that they would be allowed. So just to answer your first question, I think anybody who is going to locate it in this area is not going to rely upon someone parking their car. I think it's neighborhood because they're just not. It's interesting. If you go to like a Trader Joe's on 14th Street, they have parking, but I think probably 90% of their business is walking traffic. Go to Whole Foods on P Street, and you can go find parking up on the upper deck anytime at all time and they're busy, and it's because people in the neighborhood. And I think any retailer who's sophisticated and successful will understand that it's addressing a neighborhood walkability thing. I think a ceramic place that probably has a much larger trade area. In other words, they're not going to be just people walking there. It's going to be people that are like 2 miles away, and those people may actually take cars. They'd have to actually, because I don't think there are enough people to keep them in business that are just kind of in the neighborhood. I don't think. My guess.
Appreciate it. I did not know that Trader Joe's on 14th had parking. That's interesting. But anyway,
Is he?
questions, comments, commissioners, anyone in attendance? All right, this came with support from the committee, correct? So I'll move for us to support sending this letter to the Office of Zoning. Does it not need a second? Any last comments, questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes 7-0. Thanks for being here, Jeffrey.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Our pleasure.
Have a good.
You too. So next, proposed resolution. This also came from the PZT committee with support, I believe. Proposed resolution regarding street art, curb extensions, and Biltmore Triangle Garden. Commissioner Michelson, Horowitz, you want to introduce this again, or Commissioner Diamond? Up to you all.
I'll pass off.
Okay, so we discussed this in committee, and basically some constituents came to me about the curb extensions and the art on the street, because some of this happened in the transition between November when I was elected and January when I got sworn in. So some of the stakeholders in the space, like residents, the head of the garden, were very upset about what had happened to the street, because they felt like their voices weren't heard, that there wasn't adequate time to discuss the issue. And so I talked to someone from DDOT who said, you know, what is there right now is not permanent. So there's a chance to sort of rectify some of the neighbors' concerns. So I had a meeting with the garden people and with some neighbors, and I talked to, you know, just some constituents, and came up with a resolution, which I can share. Let me see. Yeah. I brought this up at committee, and Daniel took a look at it, and I made some adjustments. So this is what the resolution letter looks like right now. And basically it's that the colors don't match the neighborhood. The flex posts are in weird places, and there was not enough community input for the project.
All right, I have comments, but does anyone else want to go first? Anyone else have any questions or any concerns? Start with the commissioners. Okay, so I appreciate the work on this. I know this is something that I think it's the same. I actually don't know if it's the same people that spoke to you, but I know that some people that live near there had just reached out to me and your predecessor in 1CO4 regarding this, and also to Councilmember Nadeau's office, who corresponded a bit on this as well. So I know that it's something that's on people's minds. I do think that some of the, I mean, I personally have just like disagreements with some of the characterizations that I think that some of the residents might have made, and I say that appreciative of their work in the garden. In 1CO3, we got the community garden as well, so I'm definitely biased to support people that like doing community works. I know that is important. I don't work for DDOT, so I can't really claim authority on this, but if I'm like thinking correctly, I think that the placement of the posts was to make sure that the visibility at the intersection is a bit better, to be more conducive for pedestrian safety, just because it's kind of a weird, like there's a curve that intersects with another, it's not a right angle intersection. So I think that's what it is. It does look strange. Does that?
Well, it's that two sections of Biltmore Street merge into one. And the concern seems to be that, and there's also alleys that go into Biltmore Street. On one of those openings, there are stanchions on both sides of the opening, and on another one, the stanchions are only on one side. So it doesn't seem consistent. And the concerns, if there's a safety reason, it felt like to me the issue was that nobody was told why the stanchions are where they are, and that everybody really wants safety. And so if that's the issue, then I think people are willing to accept that. But some people, it was more a communication piece that like, they just it seemed a little bit random. And if a DDOT person could come and we could have a meeting, or they could come to our ANC meeting and say, you know, this, it seemed like the proposal happened and there wasn't a feedback time. And I kind of walked into this and felt like, oh, this is something I want to close the loop, because everything seemed very open with people coming to me about it.
That's definitely understandable. I'm trying to dig up some old, yeah, so DDOT did email me and Commissioner Van Wy last year. I think it was July last year, but I mean, the council member, I think in September, emailed some of the residents about this, pointing out that this is in the public right of way, so it's not a project that gets a notice of intent. It's a public street, and DDOT has the ability to just make modifications fitting in as long as they, I think, fit federal standards. Like crosswalk paintings have to be certain color schemes because it has to fit in, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the painting underneath stuff like this gets a bit more leeway, as like on Columbia Road, there's some things like that. But that is
Well,
to say,
I know, yeah, I know from other
but
commissions,
there was
I know,
no open period, but they have corresponded, just to say.
yeah. Well, I know from other commissions that oftentimes when street art is put down, it's done in coordination with the residents. And it seemed like there was a communication break from the previous commissioner that, you know, the artist did reach out to the commissioner, but then the commissioner didn't reach out to the residents. So it's just I'm trying to close the loop on that communication break, because normally the artist gets feedback from the residents, and it sounds like that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen other projects that didn't have that happen specifically, but I mean, if we can get the artist to talk to people and design something, I would definitely be in favor of that, but I'm not sure. I think there was the council member who said that this is not protocol for this type of project. So there was, like, it's just kind of my point. There was interaction between DDOT and the commission, but because of the protocol for this type of project, there was no notice of intent and this public intent period, because, and it brings up like an interesting question too, like if there's a street, who has the weight to determine what is on that street? The people who happen to own property near that street, or the people who drive through the street and don't live in the neighborhood, the people who ride the bus that go through it? Like there's a lot of different stakeholders with different perspectives, and that can get fascinating, but also at the end of the day, I don't know exactly how to determine as commissioners whose opinion is the one that we would want to channel to DDOT for if there should be art, and where, and to whose preference, you know?
Well, and I followed up on this because I spoke with a DDOT person at an event actually that Kristen had with the bid, and she told me this project is not final. There's an opportunity to get more community input, so write a resolution, which was why I jumped into the fray with all of this.
Well, welcome to doing that. Yeah, I know it can be a lot of work.
Yeah.
I guess my thought here is that if, let's say DDOT does get community input, but the community is still unhappy with the mural, like, I mean, art is art and it may not always please everyone. So I'm just saying, like, if you do these steps, you get the input, and then DDOT or whoever, the mural still, like, I'm just wondering what the continuing loop on this might be. So just like setting expectations to, like, not putting them too high and being like, we're trying to do a balance. DDOT, we're asking DDOT to be more, to improve their communication of things, but I think it's just also to be realistic with your constituents, that even if we do these steps and we get this communication, the final product might still be something that you think is too bright.
Right. No, that's
and they're gonna have to accept that.
Right. No, that's understood, but it really does seem like there was a breakdown, that there was a process, and because of when it happened, that the feedback wasn't given at the appropriate time. And I do think Peter's point of who are the stakeholders and who has the most weight, and I think that really is the question here. Can DDOT just come in and do something that the majority of residents are unhappy with? And especially when it refers to the garden, which there's a long history of the garden and how it was designed by an architect to fit in with the curve of the street and the colors and all of that. So it's, and it being a historic district, so it's not just that paint was put on a crosswalk, it's a little more complicated than that.
So I'm just looking through again my emails. The first time that DDOT emailed any 1C commissioners on this was almost a year to the date from today, so April 15th, 2024. And they asked if there were any concerns or preferences that we knew about. I mean, it's hard to, I guess, two layers to this. I didn't know of any from 1CO3, so that's on the other side of this, from any neighbors that had specific like artist preferences or anything like that. But also, I guess there's the question of determining how to assess that. Like if every, I don't know, it's tricky because I don't want to be too much of a nitpicker, but also if we set a precedent for any time that there's a thing that neighbors in any quantity just don't like, that we as a commission will go and say, hey, we're willing to go be upset and just want this changed, like that, especially when
Well,
it gets tricky, because I do like want to respect people's ability to have the opinion and the ability to communicate to commissioners to say, hey, we don't like this particular art, but also DDOT did follow the process, which is they notify the commissioners. I can't speak for your predecessor, but I mean, there's obviously people that live there that wanted to have a voice and input, and I'm not trying to deny that in any capacity, but also whose responsibility is to determine what gets put onto the district's Department of Transportation's property, essentially. And
right. And I think the stakeholders of which is, they're a big group that they felt really underrepresented. And it's like, there's a request right now to put a stop sign on Biltmore Street. Like one resident has lifted that up. And I've talked to many residents about this art. So it's the same kind of thing. Who gets to control the landscape of the street? So how, I don't want to take too much more time on this. How should we proceed on this?
I mean, it's up to us. Also, the delay is, I'm the one that's talking a lot, so I should apologize for taking a lot. I mean, anyone have thoughts? There's no motion currently on the floor, but this did come with committee support. Commissioner Swanson Palmer.
Actually just have a question, if that's okay. I don't have a motion yet. Is that okay? Great. Commissioner Diamond, I know we talked about this a little bit in the committee, and so also if someone has already said this, please forgive me, but I just am concerned about, I don't want flex posts to go away just because people don't like the way they look in the street. Like if they're there for a reason, I want them to be there. Even if it means fewer parking spots or fewer loading zones. That is, I think that's really important. So do we know if DDOT, it says they are currently studying the temporary fixtures. I understand that, but I assume that they put the flex post there because there were reports of unsafe activity or because there was a study done already. Do we know if that's true? Do we know if, and I guess my second question is really more of a discussion that maybe we can have later on too, but if it turns out that we do need these flex posts there or something else that maybe looks a little bit better, fits in better on the street, if the same folks who are concerned about this don't like the way that looks, are they going to push even further for, them to be removed? I just feel concerned about that, I guess.
I would say no, because the concerns many concerns were brought to me, but the biggest concern is the lack of communication about it. And the thing about the flex posts, and maybe before sending off this resolution, a next step would be having the person who's in charge of this project come and talk to the commission, because my understanding was that the stanchions were not permanent, that what might be permanent would be the concrete things kind of like they have to separate the bike lane so that it's something low down. So I don't know what the intended permanent street diet thing would look like. And I don't know the history of if any traffic study was done. And I was asked that question, like, what problem are the stanchions trying to solve? Because in many places they're put for pedestrian safety, but on certain places in Biltmore Street, they're placed where like it's not necessarily a crosswalk and it's not an intersection. It's just it's appeared random.
I have a comment and an idea. The comment, I will turn myself into the bad guy, but I mean, it's tricky. I understand that a lot of processes like these do genuinely have a lack of transparency that is really alarming, but I also know that in other circumstances, from personal experience, people say the exact same thing because they just didn't get what they want and they claim that there was no actual communication when there was. I'm not saying which is which in this case. I'm just saying I know that that does happen. And in my personal view, if every time there was a thing that was to be changed in the city and the city had to go to every single resident to try to get their personal opinion to see if they approve it, nothing would ever get done in the city. Like that's just the fact of the matter that it's hard to balance community input with being productive. I get that.
Right, and I guess like the process of coming to the ANC and coming to the 1CO4 and 1CO3 commissioner and having the commissioner, you know, poll the residents and reach out, that is the missing step. You know, that the previous 1CO4 commissioner did not, it apparently did not, you know, bring this to neighbors and alert people that this was happening. And that's what I'm trying to address is once I found out that that happened, I sort of stepped into the breach.
Yeah, I get that. I guess my point is, as someone who's surveyed neighbors before and had neighbors come and claim that we didn't get public input, it's usually Calorama Citizens Association that does that. But to say that, I mean, it's just tricky. Like we're unpaid, so being able to survey everyone about every issue to see who thinks what is just really difficult and expensive. But if you're willing to do it, I mean, you obviously are putting a lot of work in, so I don't want to impede on that. But my idea, so it seems like we don't know exactly everything from DDOT's side of the rationale behind some of this. So maybe what if I moved to postpone this item to next month's meeting and to try to get a DDOT person on next month's meeting to explain some of the rationale, and maybe we could pursue or look into the possibility of the artists. Well, I guess it'd be a couple things. If the art can be changed, and also if so, if the artist would be interested in collaborating with neighbors to design something that fits with, I guess, has a more widespread support from people who live nearby. Do you think that makes sense before
Yes.
going to
Yes.
resolution? And then if we decided May or whenever that we want to continue with the resolution, we could do so. But in the meantime, try to resolve it without having to go to that step.
Yeah, and apparently there was a meeting with the artist and some concerned neighbors that happened in November. And the artist felt terrible because she said, well, of course, I wouldn't have used this design had I known, you know, it didn't match with the historic district. So, you know, some of this was going on, but it just wasn't, it wasn't resolved. But I think that's a great idea. And Peter, you and I can talk offline about some more of the background, because I think we've rehashed this enough here. We can move on. So table the resolution for now, and we can come back to this.
Yeah, this is not, I was taught to do this nitpicking, but tabling is technically to put it towards later in the meeting. This would be postponing it towards next month.
Oh yeah, let's postpone.
That's okay. So I'll move that we postponed this item to the May meeting. And in the meantime, see if we can figure out some way to get DDOT to come, at least give us an email, if not come to our meeting, and give us some context and work with it. Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner. All those in favor of postponing month, say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thanks for enduring my diatribes there, commissioners, and all those in attendance. Let's see, next item on the agenda. My computer's on slow. So we have a couple. This is a notice of intent. So I guess this is kind of apropos. So the last item, when DDOT reached out, because like, as I said, the council member pointed out, it's not a type of street modification that is subject to notice of intent. This is. I just put it on the agenda just because as a courtesy, if anyone wants to, from the community, share any thoughts, whether for, opposed, or otherwise. I don't think we necessarily have to take any action on it, but if anyone has thoughts, whether commissioners or attendees, on the notice of intent from the DDOT to install a crosswalk on the 2000 block of Columbia Road, this would be a time to get those thoughts.
Give me a landmark of where that would be.
It would be on the west side of the neighborhood, roughly towards the driveway of the former Russian trade mission, where Columbia Road turns to become California Street.
Oh, so that, okay.
Yeah.
And I want to interject and say, I went and looked at this and it's really crazy right now because I guess there used to be a crosswalk and it was eliminated when they switched around the bus stops. So there's like a crosswalk on half of the street. So I'm all for this resolution for because there really needs to be a crosswalk there, because if you get off the bus, then and there's no crosswalk, it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, I've had a lot of neighbors who live in the buildings adjacent to the proposed location, who have written to DDOT and included the council member and that the proposed location is not the ideal. They'd prefer it to be where there used to be a crosswalk to the island at the where the triangle where California Street, Columbia Road, and the Connecticut Avenue, I don't know, hill, if you will, where the statue of, I'm forgetting the name of the person, the horse mounted statue.
George McKellen.
Thank you. Right, hence McClellan's retreat.
On the Google Maps.
Thank you. But yeah, so they'd prefer to be in a different location. I didn't receive any comments at the committee meeting when I put this on the agenda. I personally don't have any comments. The council member came with DDOT for a walkthrough of the location, and it was proposed. But there's been a lot of comments requesting a different location, and I would only ask that DDOT take those comments into advisement. It's been pretty unanimous from the neighbors. So I think they've got a lot of merit about the angle of that hill and the visibility and the speeds that folks travel. So that's my only comment is take those comments seriously as you make a decision. But I don't want to substitute my personal wisdom for the traffic engineers at DDOT. So that's all I got.
Any other comments, questions, commissioners? And I'll just say, I know this is on Columbia, which we've had, depending on who you ask, many meetings or absolutely no public input or a public discussion on the project. It's the first, to be clear. But I mean, this is, I think, an example of what DDOT has, I think, mentioned to us on multiple occasions, that as they are kind of closing up the bus priority project, making modifications based on public experiences and commentary, et cetera. And I think this is a reflection of that. So it's good to point out that we live in a city that is dynamic and ever-changing, and the plans to modify it are also as such. I don't have any motion to make. I think it's just good to have this on the agenda just in case. I know that at PZT discussed it, but I hope we get more crosswalks. They're in general very good. All right. Anyone in attendance have any thoughts? Last call. Okay. And last item on tonight's agenda, Q2 2025 quarterly financial report. I think this will be simple, but we do need to approve it in order to get money so that we can hold meetings in order to discuss the next time that we need money in order to pay for the cycle of discussing QFRs, essentially. Commissioner Olson, go ahead.
The QFR is, as I understand, a matter of public record. I put it into the chat here for anyone to see. We got about $7,000 or $8,000 from the city. We got the $758 back through a tax reimbursement, basically. And the money that we've put out has been the money to run these meetings and then bank fees. So it's a very uninteresting QFR, which I think is great for us to get our feet under us. My only other note is for Commissioner Swanson Palmer that if we approve this, that the minutes must reflect that we approve specifically the fiscal year 2025 Q2 QFR. Happy to field any questions about the content of the report.
I got one question. I think the answer is yes, but just in case. And it might be my fault because I might be the person who said he was going to look into the cost of this. If that is the case, I apologize. We have discussed the potential like buying some sort of like tabling type signage type thing for the ANC. We got enough money to buy something like that?
I think it's a question about budget, and I can pull up the budget. I mean, we have cash on hand, so I think if you want to do that, we can put that in the agenda for next meeting. But I can also double check about the budget.
Just in general, just thinking ahead. Yeah, I wasn't trying to imply we vote on something like that.
Oh yeah, no, I think we're like generally fiscally stable. Like I think going forward, there's not money that's going to like come out of our account other than the things like our storage and communications and anticipatable. I think we're now in a position that I could do some projections if that's useful, but I think, yeah, if you should put together kind of a cost estimate and then we can check that out.
That's good. We've been prudent for like a year and a half, so I'm glad that it's finally dividends, not literally. Any other questions, comments, commissioners, those in attendance? All right, let's just approve this. Well, let's vote on it. I'll move to to pass this QFR so we can get things moving with all of the paperwork, which I've mentioned frustratingly that is sometimes unnecessarily tedious in my personal opinion. But that was not something I said publicly to the people that will listen. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, last comments. All right, and all those in favor of passing, supporting whatever it is, this QFR, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 7-0. Nice meeting, everybody. That will adjourn for tonight. See you all committee meetings the next month. Have a good evening.